maybe we'll get started. It's a few minutes after 7:30. My name's Mike Morrow. I'm the president of the St. John Center of the RESC, and we've got a fairly full agenda tonight. And I'm going to start with an acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We'd also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nuntukavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. And, you know, as we've done before, I'd sort of invite everybody to think about what that means to them, and people who are from places like myself who are from places other than this province originally, to think about you know, the first people on there where they lived, and so that the doing this exercise has some meaning. Okay, so Anna showed me a better way to manage the screens up here. We're going to see if it works. So I'm hoping that I can control. I'm hoping it will look invisible to the people at home. And there we are. So couple announcements. Thank you to Gary Diamond. We're going to have a members only planetarium show next week on Thursday at 8:30 at the Marine Institute. You go in and go up the sort of curvy stairs right in front of you, and when you come out, where you want to go is the little hallway, not the two big hallways in either direction, and that should get you there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a sign that says planetarium anymore, but
Says
On the door.
says no.
on the door it is, but I think the hallway says celestial navigation.
Okay, and the title is going to be Forward to the Moon as Canada sends its first astronaut to the moon. We look at how the new space race to the moon is going. So that sounds pretty good. So I'm looking forward to that. And our next meeting, sort of following on with from the theme for tonight, is going to be Nikolai Demyanov, who's going to be talking about, I guess, sort of the what kind of weather we can expect in April. I guess what sort of the history is. So that's something else we're looking forward to. Let me see, Nikolai, can you did you want to say anything more about that? I've probably muted you, but can you? There, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet what the presentation will involve, but I'll try to give everybody some guidance on weather trends so that people can make the most well-informed decision, specifically for Newfoundland. I'm going to focus on this province. So I've yet to come up with the content, but hopefully it will be useful for decision-making on where to go.
Because the best decision would be to go to Texas or someplace, right? But no, not Texas.
Weather-wise, yes.
Weather-wise, there'd be other reasons. Okay, thank you very much, Nikolai. Okay, so the next order of business. Oh, I want to welcome visitors, and I know we've got one who does know a little bit about membership. So anyone else that's not a member, and we may have someone here. These meetings, we meet the third Wednesday of every month. They're public meetings. Everybody's welcome. You don't need to be a member, but there are some benefits to membership. There is a supportive community, the people here, the people online, to help you learn about astronomy. It's a great way to learn about astronomy. One of the real assets of the group is the chat line, where people share their observations, they discuss the observations. There's a lot of mentoring that goes on there, alerts about things to look at. And so that's a members only thing. And if you're a member, you can contact Randy or just go through info@stjohnsresc.ca and he can add you to that group. There are publications, the journal and the handbook. We have low-cost equipment rentals. If you're trying to figure out what kind of telescope to use, the best thing to do is maybe borrow one for, $10 or something like that for fairly at least a month and often longer. And when the weather's nicer, sometimes we have member observing sessions. We haven't been doing that so much since the pandemic, but we can do that out at Butterpot. And there are some members should be getting a weekly news. Well, you can sign up for the weekly newsletter and you'll automatically also get a bulletin. And if you're not getting those and you want to let us know. So the next order of business is the announcement of the results for the AstroImaging contest. And there's so the way this worked was people submitted images up until I guess the first week in December, and then everybody had an opportunity to vote, and that's basically what we did. We had 4 categories: wide field, solar system, deep sky, and sketching, but we didn't have any entries in sketching. But we had 1 winner in each category and 2 runners up. And so with no further ado, I'm going to announce the winners, and then I'll announce the honorable mentions, 2 honorable mentions in each category. So we had a reasonable number of entries, now that we were still kind of figuring out how the whole process would work. And I'd like to thank Marcellus and Gary for setting things up, and Craig for managing it turned out to be more web heavy than we anticipated. So Craig did a lot of work making that work. And so we'll learn something from this and maybe do it again in a year or so. So the first category is wide field, and there's the winner. Jim Stacy, a wide field shot of the moon and Venus. Very nice. So congratulations, Jim. And let's see, I don't know. Yeah, maybe if could everybody online mute, please? We're hearing voices in the background. So this is what it looks like. I'll do my SCTV 3D thing. There we are. Okay, so Marcellus got these. Marcellus was very busy for the last week carving these, and so Jim will get that to you. Actually, I know where to leave it, so you can so somebody can pick it up for you. And okay, and the next category was solar system, and that winner's going to look familiar. Also James, and also the moon, but a much closer up view of the moon during the total lunar eclipse, just before total lunar eclipse. And I think we remember seeing this one. And then the deep sky winner was Bernard. So congratulations, Bernard. Just trying to unmute you. There you are.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
And Jim, I didn't. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Bernard.
Oh, it's an honor to win it. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, and Jim, I didn't give you an opportunity to say something. If you wanted to say a word or two.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm deeply honored, and I greatly appreciate all the participation that made this contest actually meaningful. And so, yeah, no, I really enjoyed seeing everybody's contributions.
So I think a round of applause for the 3 winners. There were lots of really beautiful. I hope everybody had a chance to look at the images online. The web page where we were displaying the images, Craig and I are going to just modify that a little bit, indicate which ones are the winners, and actually add the photographers' names to the text file that goes with it, and probably to the caption. And so those will be archived on the St. John's RESC.ca, so that we can look at them, and as the contest goes along in the future, we'll sort of build up an archive of these images. So we also had some honorable mentions, and the honorable mentions will get a certificate which Randy prepared. Thank you very much, Randy. So for the wide field, it was Jim Johnson for Milky Way and Cynthia Patterson for the Moon and Jupiter. So I can give you that one. And for solar system, we had Chris Stevenson's Uranus and Moons, quite an interesting technical effort, and Bernard Day's Saturn. So congratulations. So both of you will be getting certificates. So I'll show you what the certificates here look like. There it is. So that's that looks backwards to me. Oh well.
It's okay here.
Okay, it must just be the way that I'm looking at it on the screen here. And for the deep sky honorable mentions, we had again 2 familiar names, both beautiful images, James Stacy and Jim Johnson. And there were some ties, so I've also included them. And since Bernard won the category, I'm not going to give him a certificate too for honorable mention. But so the winners were well separated in the voting. For the honorable mentions, of course, once we were down to smaller numbers of votes, there are lots of ties. So I've noted all them in these. Okay, so once again, thank you for everybody. And thank you to Marcellus and Gary. Marcellus was the driving force, and Gary helped put together the guidelines. So thank you very much. And Craig for doing the web stuff that was involved. So the next item of business is Randy giving a talk about the solar eclipse.
Okay, so for those who are here, there's a map here on the wall of the North America portion of the eclipse, and the Newfoundland portion is on a map over here. I gave a shortened version of this talk a little while ago, and as we're getting closer. So this is the first eclipse we've had in Newfoundland since 1970.
I think you gotta use the arrow keys now.
Yep. And after this one, you gotta wait till 2079. I won't be here. I produced this brochure, which is freely available. It's on our website for printing. The center of which has that map. You see the map?
Probably yellow into the
Okay. This pamphlet, of course, is not meant to be everything that you'll ever need to know about an eclipse. There's lots of different types of people who are going to be looking for an eclipse. Most us are amateur astronomers, so we have a different take on what we're looking for versus the public, right? So I'd invite you, I'll show you where that is as we go, right? So just a brief overview. What is a solar eclipse? Why is it so rare? A little bit about celestial mechanics, not very much, only enough to explain why. The current eclipse, some viewing tips, photography, and some local history. So if you haven't seen that word before, syzygy, it's a cool word if you want to impress everybody that you know it. It just means a sun, moon, earth alignment. People say, why isn't there an eclipse every month? You know, the moon's going around all the time. We're going around the same path. Well, the orbits are not circular. They're not aligned with the center of the sun as well. Everything is tipped one way or another. So there's only 2 periods in a year when we can get eclipses. And as you can see, does the mouse show up on this? Doesn't, right? So this period here is where you get totality. All the rest of that is a partial eclipse. For this eclipse, almost all of North America gets a partial. All of Newfoundland and Labrador is a partial outside of the center line, center path, I should say. And here's what you'll see the face of the moon during totality that we normally see. Okay, so people say it's a rare eclipse because in reality, up until very recently, people weren't traveling to see eclipses. So if you stayed home, you'd only get an eclipse every 300 or 400 years. So, now with social media and travel and eclipse cruises and all these sorts of things, lots of people are seeing eclipses, but still, you know, a lot of the Earth is still covered by ocean. There's the Arctic, the Antarctic, unpopulated areas of, you know, Africa and these places. So that cuts down on the opportunity, time of year, weather like we're having now in April is not as good as it is in July, obviously. Travel accessibility, you know, who knows when it's going to be a pandemic. It'll shut the world down again for a couple of years like we had. So as I mentioned, 1970 was our last total solar eclipse in the province, and the next one after this is 2079, and I won't be here. So just a few facts about celestial mechanics. The moon's orbit is inclined, and as I mentioned, all this node business. You can only get a lunar eclipse when you got a full moon. Oh, sorry. Lunar eclipse is full moon, obviously. Solar eclipse is at new moon. And only when the moon and the sun are in the same node, as you saw that diagram. Lately, we've been hearing this phrase of supermoon. Well, that's because the press have cottoned on to, you know, the fact that the moon varies in its orbit by, you know, a few percentage, and when it could be 3% larger. My, that's huge. Moon is rising on the horizon, etc. So, but for us, it does matter that if the moon is a little closer, it may not blot out all of the sun, and you get an annular eclipse. If it's a little bit further out, it may take more of the corona that we don't see. We only get eclipses because the moon is, well, the sun is 400 times wider than the moon, but it's 400 times further away. So for the next couple million years, we'll get eclipses. After that, we won't. I'll mention the Saros cycle. That's the name they put on eclipses that are roughly same time of year in the same location path. And I'll mention that. So there's the path loosely. I wouldn't bet on anything being absolutely precise to the mile or kilometer. So roughly, the center line goes from Codroy to Monte Vista, and maybe 90 kilometers on each side of that. That's the path of totality. We are on the end of the eclipse in North America. So when it gets up here, there's not a circular shadow, it's a bit oblong. So if you think of, if you're out on the edge of that oblong, it's a shorter period. So if, for example, you were in Badger on I'd go a little bit further east, get a bit more eclipse. I wouldn't trust, like I said, if you're right on the eclipse line, that you're going to get totality, right? And there is nothing like 99% totality, it's totality or not. Okay. As I say, that map is on your brochure, it's here, it's on our website. I'll mention some things about that a little later. Nikolai will get into this next month. I'm already seeing indications that the, is it El Nino we're into now? El Nino is actually moving this blue area up further. So up into Ohio now is included in the blue area this year. If you're going to that area. This map was prepared by a guy out in Manitoba, Jay Anderson. You can find his stuff on eclipsophile.com, I think his site is. So a little bit closer for us. You don't see any blue here, right? So we're up into the greater than 70% possibility of cloud. I don't think there's really much difference anywhere on the island. So we'll see. But these predictions are based on statistics for the past 20, 30, 40 years. People have been following the eclipse on April the 8th the past few years. Last year on April the 8th, it was the reverse of prediction. Maritimes had some clear, and Texas and Mexico were clouded. So there you go, right? So again, these are loose. I approximate some of the times. Don't forget it's going to be spring. Still likely winter for us. Who knows, right? Loosely, the eclipse starts about 4 o'clock and ends just after 6. A couple of minutes difference on east or west. Totality is around 5 o'clock, you know, and again, on the East Coast is 2 or 3 or 4 minutes later than that, and on the West Coast a little earlier. Little under 3 minutes of totality, and it's a very active sun at the moment, so the corona may be large. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. There is an event being planned for Gander for the weekend leading up into the eclipse, and stay tuned for details of that kind of stuff. St. John's will not get a total solar eclipse. It's 99.5% or whatever. So if you go to timeanddate.com and click on eclipses, you can see what is going to happen in St. John's, and I'll show you an approximate picture of what that's going to look like. Now that may be particularly dangerous. It's late the afternoon. It's going to be low on the horizon, 25 degrees or so. If there's any cloud, you might be tempted to try and look at it without protection, eclipse glasses or whatever, and there you go. So it's unfortunate that St. John's is so close, but no cigar. Viewing aids, there are varied and many. We are distributing to our members these eclipse glasses. I think you've all seen them. You just bend them, put them on. You should inspect them before use. And you put them on like this and look up, and not like that. Anybody who's visiting remotely and you haven't got the eclipse glasses, I can send you some if you write to our address. Some people prefer these viewers. You can do this. Camera filters as well. You can stick on the end of your binoculars or telescope. There's no shortage at the moment. I've seen some people looking at buying full Mylar sheets of Eclipse glass material and making up like full big screens that you can look through. Lots of people do different things. Some kids get creative. They take these glasses and stick it in a dinner plate. Now, in Texas, you might need those because of the sun. It's high in the sky, and you got to worry about sunburn. So, another popular method is pinhole projection. You put somehow put a very tiny pin prick in the front of something and look at the back of it. I've known many people try to look through that pinhole then thinking that's what they're supposed to do. I don't like the idea of pinhole projection myself. So pinhole projection is also what happens when the sun shines through leaves and these sorts of things on the ground, on walls, especially crescent phases of the eclipse. You start seeing that kind of stuff. So as I say, photography, it's a relatively short totality of 3 minutes or so, or maybe a little less. That will go in an instant. As I say, the closer to the center of the path of totality, the longer will be your eclipse. Outside of that is a partial eclipse. It's late in the afternoon. Sun is only 24 degrees up, so it's not very high up. So that also means that you have to be cognizant if you're going to stop along the side of the road. Typically, we only clear 100 feet on the side of the road in some areas, so there's trees. And if you happen to be down a little bit, you may not see. So you need to plan ahead for that. If you can get up high and see the sunset, you'll be much better off. Temperature could be an issue. It is, like I said, the first week or so of April. Could still be winter here. So that could be a problem. If it's your first eclipse, we always say you should try to look at the eclipse rather than try to get that perfect picture. You will never get the perfect picture, and there will be a billion others out there. Get solar filters and practice early. You can easily cut those and stick them onto your cell phone if you want to do that. And Alan Dyer's a big name in eclipsing. So some of his recommendations for full frame cameras are 300 to 600 millimeter, 100 ISO. And then again, depending what the view is, we'll see some of that in a second. Just to show you the difference in exposure. You know, we want the diamond ring and stuff, 1,000 or 2,000ths of a second. If you want the corona, longer exposures, 1/10 of a second. These are all 600 millimeter. These are pictures I took at the 2017 eclipse, just to show you that effect again, 400th of a second or 1/30th of a second. And you can just start to see the age of So for the rest of you who aren't going to be using high magnification cameras or even a telescope, think of how the size of the moon, that's what you're going to see for the sun in the sky. You'll note on this picture that it's twilight on the sides, dark in the middle. There's a lot of hype. You'll see a lot of hype and you'll hear a lot of hype about what you're going to see. You have to remember that the majority of the eclipse media coverage is US or American. I've seen maps American produced that the eclipse stops in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Doesn't even come to Canada or Mexico, only the US, et cetera, right? So also starting to see some traffic that there's a huge big comet going to appear in the sky up around Jupiter. It remains to be seen. So this is actually, if you have any planetarium software, you can plug in your location, date and time, and you can see what it's going to look like. But certainly Venus is going to be very bright, as is Jupiter. So you can count on those being there. That might help frame what size of lens opening you're going to use, how much of that sky that you want. Do you want to get the planets there? So each eclipse is different. In Mexico, we could see the eclipse coming down over the hills and coming at us. As soon as they get close enough, you know, totality is about to start, and you can take off your glasses, your filters, whatever. The same way when it's over, the sunlight starts coming down over the mountains and at you, and you can use that as timing. These days, we're all so sophisticated now, you can get apps on your phone to tell you when to do everything, right? So as I showed a minute ago, just as totality is starting, the last bits of sunlight get in and around the edges of the surface of the moon and break up into what we call Bailey's beads, bright lights, usually a salmony pink color. And there's an elusive effect called shadow bands dancing on the ground, same sort of effect, last bits of light around the edge of the moon. Most people can't photograph them very well, but video shows them much better. I never usually look down to sky when I'm looking at eclipses. Planets and the comets, if they're there. Temperature change, again, we're talking late in the day in April.
Get cooler?
Yeah. Well, it actually mattered. In 2017, we were in Wyoming, and it was very high up, and I had my lens taped so it wouldn't move, but it moved just a little bit when the temperature changed, so the focus changed a little bit as well. So, and then at the end again, you see the shadow, right? And so again, on the day of weather, well, who are you going to trust? Is it East Coast, West Coast? Where are you going to be? You're probably not going to be able to drive from St. John's to Codroy with any luck on that day. Again, it's a single road, don't forget. And as this happens a lot these days, if there's an accident, the road is closed for 4, 5, 6 hours if it's a serious accident. So if you were stationing yourself in Gander and it's cloudy, you want to go to the West Coast, don't forget that as soon as you pass Badger, you've got to drive all the way down past Stephenville before you're back into totality. And that could easily be a 5-hour drive. And again, we're talking first week of April. There could be snow on the roads, shouldered. If you don't know where you're going to stop, you have no plan. So if you have a plan that you're going to use cameras and telescopes and all those things, you may not get to use any of that if you make a last minute dash to go somewhere. But again, so that's where you have to trust to Nikolai to tell us all exactly where to go, and chuckle and traffic. So if you're doing any research on eclipses, you'll start seeing these sorts of maps. There was a production of what's called a canon of eclipses. So they mapped out the eclipses for the rest of the time. As I mentioned, there's Saros cycle 134. If you're not in the path of totality, it doesn't make any difference if it's an annular. You're only going to see a partial. So I mentioned these here. This one in 51 was probably a half partial for us. And this is 1959, again, a close, but no cigar. This is way before internet, social media, any of that kind of stuff. I couldn't find very much coverage. I remember some of the coverage of 63. That was a very close, large partial for us, but my memory was that it was cloudy that day. We didn't get to see it. So, and so 1970, as you can see, the eclipse raced up the east coast of the US, mostly offshore, but happened to come across us. I was in Terra Nova Park, and the sky was probably down to around here, very much like today. I saw the shadow go over, but that was it. But that started my fascination with eclipses. myself and Gary and a few people went to Winnipeg and then went north of Winnipeg on the day of the eclipse. Temperature got down to -30, -40, something like that. It was a beautiful eclipse. We had a great eclipse, 2 minutes or so. Again, remember, we're still back in the days of film cameras, right? And expensive lenses if you wanted to go that route. My story with that eclipse was that the research told me if you're going north, you should get your camera degreased and low temperature grease put back in so you could survive in the cold. I went to Teutons and he wanted $300 for that, for my $60 camera. So I didn't do it. Guess what happened? My camera froze. So I have a few pictures, but not many. '79 is what I was just talking about, Winnipeg. '72. Yeah, I'm confused by the star, right? That's the '72. We went to Nova Scotia and had a beautiful eclipse. A little bit of cloud at totality, but it's still a beautiful eclipse. We got all the effects that you noticed. It was in July, so the cows lay down in the field and birds chirped and all these sorts of things. Was that the eclipse that the song "Fly in Your Learjet" to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun? Okay, so
Crystal Baines who also
Yeah.
that song.
yeah.
Popular.
So 91, I was fortunate enough to be at the very tip of the Baja Peninsula, Cabo San Lucas, in a soccer field. We had 7 minutes of totality. It was 40 degrees. So it was very hot. This was the first eclipse that we started to see the hype. The hype was that there was so many people going to be driving down the Baja Peninsula that the cars would be lined up from front to back and you wouldn't be able to see the eclipse. So we flew down and flew back the next day. Well, day after, but we didn't see anybody. It was just all hype. So yeah. So again, 94 with an annular, we got a bit of a piece of that. So 2017, myself and Gary, Dave Newbury and Robert went to the US is with Nikolai. Nikolai, I think, went a bit west of us. We were on a bus tour then from Denver up into the eclipse path. Calculations of the bus tour said that it would take 2 hours to get there. Eclipse started at 10 o'clock or so. We left at 3 a.m. and got there at 10 o'clock or so. Same way coming back. We left at 3 o'clock and got back to the hotel at 3 a.m. with full toilets on the bus and et cetera, et cetera. That picture in the middle again was with a point and shoot camera that I had them just do this, right? 24 is that one there. That's what we're all hoping for. Let's see. There were a lot more North American eclipses in the past 100 years than there will be for the next 100 years. After this, there's very little, right? We've got a couple here. There's one in 26 up in Spain, Greenland, Spain, these areas, 27. So again, in the area of travel, lots of people will be traveling to see those eclipses. As I mentioned, if I use these maps, the 2079 eclipse, the west coast will be right in the center of it, and St. John's won't. So St. John's has to wait till 2106 to get its next total. And like 2079, I won't be here. So again, there's the map. It's on our website and on the brochures. And I'm going to slip down here now just to show you what we can expect. When we got there, we were lucky at the time that we could use sunspots to focus cameras and stuff. So my tracking wasn't perfect. I was using a small Sky Adventure tracker in sun mode. So this is just the progression of it. All of these shots are about 760 millimeter f11. That's, you know, this is what St. John's, I think, will get. As soon as I saw the shadow coming, I took off my filters and started shooting without a filter. So this is the very last segment of the sunlight. So the moon is going this way. This will diminish then, and you'll start seeing stuff on the other end. So again, this is fairly rapid succession. And then you can start seeing now the shadow is going this way. So it's covering off that and starting to show on the other side now. So now you got some beads on both sides. And that's very, very beautiful to look at. You probably won't notice very much of that with your naked eye looking up into the sky. So photographers, I think, got it made there, right? And again, this again is just moving off. It'll get brighter on the edge then. And you can see the tracking was off a little bit. Again, when we got to the field, Eclipse had started. It was plunk down your equipment, try to set up a tent to keep the sun off you, and try to, everybody's saying, where's north? Where's north? Where's north? Right? So again, this is some very nice beads starting to show there, right? So, and again, by fiddling with your exposure times, you either get Bailey's beads or you get Corona. You know, you start seeing the little veins of stuff. These are what we look for. And then again, before you know it, it's all over again. And the sun is moving again. So then that then filters back on and you're finished, right? I wanted to show you a couple of utilities we have. Remind me again, Mike, got to do escape. We have an Eclipse website on our website. You know, over there. Okay. Okay, so that's our website. If you go up, we will make Eclipse front and center of it. You go under outreach, solar eclipse. This is our website. So that's the brochure. If you want to print the pamphlet, the pamphlet is there, right? It's not copyright. So something we didn't have until this one is clickable, zoomable maps where you can all kinds of detail. So just zoom in and pick where you want to be. Gander, for example, and then you can get all the details in of that particular location, what it will look like, progress of it, right? And this kind of stuff, right? Even some historical cloud coverage. So it's a strange. So again, this is basically what it would look like in the sky. But for our purposes, I'll just zoom in. You have a couple of sliders then on speed, how fast you want it to go, and then timing. So this is what it would look like for your planning. If you're supposedly. Oh. Doesn't seem to want to work. Anyway,
There you go.
so now again, these are predictions. If you plug St. John's into this map, I think it shows totality. So again, now this is useful for your planning of where the moon will be, which way it's coming in, this kind of sort of stuff if you're planning. So again, that's you can watch this to your heart's content. There is some other stuff on the other side that's not showing here. The shape of the shadow and this sorts of stuff. So I encourage you to go play with this utility. It's very nice. I don't think I need to say anything more about that, do I? I think that's all I had, was it?
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Questions?
Thank you. Survey, we take some questions, and people online, just go ahead and unmute and ask if you've got questions online. Okay,
Thank you.
not, thank you very much. We'll be in touch to give you a speaker's.
Yeah.
Take note from your cupboard, Brandon.
Yeah, go find a mug there somewhere. Okay, so thank you again, and Hilding's online. We're gonna hear Hilding's organizing the thing in Gander, so we'll be hearing more about that as we get closer, and we'll be hearing from Nikolai about the weather next month. Let me see how I can get. Hey, there we are. So people online, can you see the screen again and can you hear me? Yes, no, maybe,
Yep.
or not
Yep.
shake.
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
okay, thank you very much. So the next little bit, I'm gonna go through some observations that people posted since our last meeting in around December 20th. And we did have a few clear nights. There were actually a few in the last week. So again, I'm going to organize these not chronologically, but you'll see. So we do have a solar image from Randy. This is with the Sea Star. So many of you know about the Sea Star. It's what would you call it? An automated telescope, a smart telescope. So Randy and Gary have Sea Stars, and so we'll see a few images like this. It finds things for you and does the stacking and projects it on your phone. So this one you can see some, and you can put in solar filters. So there's lots of nice. And there's my mouse there. Some sunspots, and then some solar system objects. I was out on Christmas morning before breakfast, and I guess a sundog counts as a solar system object because we're in the solar system. So there were some nice sundogs. If you remember, Christmas morning was pretty cool. But interestingly, a neighbor came by a few days ago and stopped and showed me a picture on his camera and said, "This was over top of your house. Was this a comet?" And it was on Christmas Day. And I said, "No, I think that was probably the sundog." And I think that's what he was seeing, but a little bit later in the day. So Randy did a shot of the moon with the Sea Star, and magnified, so lots of yes.
This is a continuing updated project. In the last firmware, they enabled 2 and 4 times zoom and sliders for exposure. So you get pictures like this now.
Okay, yeah, so I wondered about that because we weren't seeing that when you first got it. So what Randy's saying is that this is a result of a firmware update where they've introduced magnification and more control over the exposure. So that's interesting. You got this, what, 6 months ago? September. And so the sea stars are evolving quite a bit. I took a shot a couple nights ago of the moon as it was getting dark while I was lining up for something else. And Chris, was that last night, January 16th? So it is.
Yep.
So we got a number of shots from Chris. So this was at 8 o'clock, and you can see Io and Ganymede, and you know, a lovely sharp shot of Jupiter with his 12-inch telescope, and some of the details are there on the side. And then it was about an hour later, and the great red spots rotated into view, and it's a little bit wider view, so you can see Europa there as well. So lovely shots there. And then one of these shots, which Chris has now done a few of, which are quite impressive. So Chris, you just want to say a word again about what you do here? And I'll just point out what we've got here is, so this is Uranus, but with some masking, so not as exposed as much. And then Oberon, Titania, Ariel, and Umbriel, and I guess a couple stars. Do you want to say just a word or two more about these kind of shots, Chris?
Well, I keep waiting. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
I keep waiting for a camera that has a sufficient dynamic range to be able to get it all in one shot. But that doesn't exist yet. So right now, this is a composite of 2 exposures, a video clip of 1/4 second exposures to get the planet properly exposed, and without changing anything, repeating it with 4-second exposures to burn in the moons a bit more, because they're just not detected through the noise at a 1/4 second. And then the 2 images are reduced similarly, and I literally produce basically a mask, paint a disc over the overexposed image, make that disc transparent so it's a hole, and I use software to stamp the 2 together, and the properly exposed planet pops through the hole. So it's a composite barely, but yeah, this is what's required to get the moons. Only 4 this time, but yeah, I was going to say I'll keep working at it, but I think the window for taking Uranus pictures is closing pretty quickly the next month or so. I may get a chance to try this again, but anyway, yeah, it's a bit of fun. Pretty cold, so yep.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Chris. And so then I'll continue on with some deep sky objects. And again, what I'll do is sort of go from high to low right ascension. So starting around 24 hours and going down. And so one of the shots we had this month was from Jim Johnson, a dark nebula, the Shark Nebula. So just to orient you, there's Polaris there, the Big Dipper, and Cepheus, and Cassiopeia. So the Shark Nebula is in here. So it's about 650 light years away, and it's basically dust. And there's what it looks like. And this is one of the shots that Jim has done with his new RASA telescope, which I'm hoping we're gonna get talk about pretty soon. And I think this is sort of the front of the shark, and that must be the back of the shark. And so the next one is the Elephant Trunk Nebula. So this is again close to Cepheus, but now I've got the image from Stellarium rotated a little bit. So this is a star forming site. And this is a shot from Stellarium, and you're going to see, so this is what we're going to see in, it's going to be Jim Stacy's picture. There's the elephant trunk, and this leading edge is being illuminated by this very bright star down here, which is HD 206267. And this is about 2,400 light years away. So you can see that it's near the tail of Cygnus, between Cygnus and Cassiopeia, and lovely shot here. You know, lots of nebulosity, but there's the actual elephant trunk, and there's the star that's sort of lighting up this edge of that gas. And this was, in a sense, a first light. Jim, you can maybe just say a word about this. This was an old lens. Jim's specialty is repurposing old lenses. I don't know if that's a specialty or not, but it seems to be a theme with Jim's stuff. And the trick with this, I think, was that he needed an adapter that he got from Jim Johnson to let him talk to that lens. So you want to just say a word about that, Jim?
Yes, thanks, Mike. That's exactly right. I use old legacy Canon lenses to do most of my astrophotography. And this particular lens is the first generation the telephoto lens with autofocus. So it required an electronic connection. And I was using an Astro camera. And so I had to borrow, and I got the loan from Jim Johnston of this Astromechanics adapter, which allowed me to focus the lens and also set the aperture. So yeah, this is the first light picture of that particular camera lens combination.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jim. And so the next one, we're starting to move into the season when we can see Leo and some of the galaxies around Leo. So the Leo triplet. So here's Leo. And so to orient you, there's the Big Dipper and Leo and Castor and Pollux. So hopefully that's enough to give you an idea about where it is in the sky. So the Leo triplet is back here. So if that's the lion's head and the tail. So it's 3 galaxies. They're about 35 million light years away. The M65 is a spiral galaxy. A little bit of recent star formation, but it seems to be mostly old stars. M66, very well-defined dust lanes, and it's interacting gravitationally with the Hamburger galaxy, which we see side on. And so you really see a lot of dust on the side there. So there they are there, the Hamburger galaxy, and I'd have to check myself which one is which here. But that's the Leo triplet. So who can tell Jim Johnson, which one's M65, which one's M66? Is Jim there?
I think 65 is on the right.
Okay, so 65 and 66. Okay.
Is that the Hamburger galaxy?
That's the Hamburger there. So the Hamburger you're seeing side on, you can see the a lot of dust. Again, this is one of Jim's pictures with his new rasoscope. And so Gary with the his C star S50 did a galaxy up here, also near Leo, but near the head of Leo. And it's interesting that that galaxy, the core of it's got one NGC number and the galaxy itself has another, right? I was a little confused by that. But this is what that looked like. And the galaxy itself, I think, is 2905, and let me just go back. 2905 is the core, and the galaxy is 2903. Did you know anything about that?
No,
So if you go with Stellarium, both numbers put you at the same place, but one is bigger than the other.
I know when you zoomed in, you can actually see the three spirals.
Yes. I can't zoom in right now, but I can see it here, so it is up on the I don't know if I can zoom in. I don't think I can zoom in on that nicely. You can see these, of course, on the RSC, and I'll talk. So we've last month we had some images of the Cone Nebula. It's fairly complicated object. There's a lot going on in there. So to orient you, here's Orion, and there's Gemini, so it's sort of in between. There's the Cone Nebula, and then the Christmas tree cluster in, and there's also some dark nebulosity there. And so I'm going to ask Jim Stacy to once and for all tell me what bits of this are which. So
Okay, that's
is all of that the Cone Nebula?
I'm confused, frankly, about what parts are the Cone Nebula and various other features. It's fairly easy in this picture to see the Christmas tree cluster, though.
So is that's
So you can start there. Now, when I look at star maps, the Cone Nebula is actually referencing the nebulosity at the base of that tree. So the slight bluish tinge at the base of the tree is the nebulosity that they're referring to as the Cone Nebula. But that what I associate with the cone is the elephant trunk feature that's at the top of the tree, right there. Yes. And
okay. Not everybody agrees with that, but
no, I understand, and I'm confused by the designations myself. So, and then
Yeah.
of course, with this particular lens, there's a wide field, and there's lots of other features there, like the nebulosity that we'll hear about a little bit more from Jim Johnston on that part of the features. And then there's the dark nebulosity, which is basically featured at the bottom of the picture. But my favorite feature is this this cluster of yellow gold stars that are just basically to the left of the Cone Nebula. And it's right in the center of the field there. You can.
so there.
No, just a little bit more to the left. A little bit up. There's very fine dust. That right there. Yeah. There's a very nice cluster of stars there.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Jim. And Gary also did one in that neighborhood, but probably needs more exposure. So, but that's the beginning of that with the C star, and I think we'll see. You're going to try that some more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember to say.
Okay, and Jim Johnson did one that is in that neighborhood as well that I hadn't heard of, called Dreyer's Nebula, which is a reflection nebula, and Jim Stacy referred to it. So Jim, do you want to just say a word about this one, Jim Johnson? That's the first time I've seen this one like this.
Yeah, I was actually scrolling through my Facebook feed one evening and I saw another image of it. So I figured I must give that one a try myself. It is a like Jim said, it's a bit of nebulosity that's in the same area of the Christmas tree cluster and the Cone Nebula. You can actually see it in his water field image on the left-hand side, if you just want to go back to his for a second. Yeah,
Yeah,
just on the lower left-hand corner there.
Yep. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, and this is one where I found a couple of different names when I was looking around there as well, but in Stellarium, if you want to look up this one, it's got to be IC 0447. It doesn't like an IC with just 3 digits, or at least my version of Stellarium doesn't. And again, in the same neighborhood, there's the Rosette Nebula, and the satellite cluster is inside the Rosette Nebula. So the Rosette Nebula is an H2 region. Again, there's lots of newly formed stars, a dense molecular cloud, and Gary did that region with again with the C star. This is just 20 minutes, so you can see the Rosette Nebula and the satellite cluster there in the middle. So that's I think we're all getting a lot of practice saying that's pretty amazing for 20 minutes and things like that. So that's very nice. And then this time of year, there's lots of action near Orion. There's a lot of nebulosity up around Alnitak, and of course there's M42. So up around Alnitak, there's the Horsehead Nebula, and there's the Flame Nebula, and down here there's M42, the Running Man Nebula, the Marin's Nebula. And so we've got lots of contributions from that area. So Orion's, hopefully people can find Orion. It's sort of the dominant thing in the sky after about 9 o'clock nowadays. And so this is a beautiful shot from Jim Johnson with the RASA. Jim's done this a few times, and I don't know if it's ever looked this nice, but the Horsehead Nebula and the Flame Nebula. Greg Baggs did that as well. So there's the Flame Nebula, Horsehead Nebula. So he's using an 80 ED refractor and a Canon T2i. And Gary did that with the C star in 40 minutes. So there's the Flame Nebula and the Horsehead Nebula in 40 minutes. And so this is now moving down to M42, and there's the Running Man Nebula. So this is Greg Baggs again, an 80 ED refractor. So beautiful, lots of nice colors in the Orion Nebula. And Gary did a couple with the C star, and this is 4 minutes, and I put 3 exclamation marks. It's worth at least 3 exclamation marks. This was unprocessed, and this was with some processing using AstroCooker.
It was an AI thing.
An AI thing.
He'll put it up into the computer, and it used to come back in a minute, but now everybody knows about it. So last one I put in was last night, and it hasn't been reprocessed yet.
Okay.
That was 2004, so it's gotten very hot.
AstroCooker. Okay, so how many? Is there a limit to how much you can put up?
I don't know. I haven't processed that much, but you just put it up, and it gets rid of the green, and it does the sharpening and the masking, and takes the stars out and then puts the stars. All that for you.
Okay.
Won't be for now.
When you become an expert, you can give us a talk on that.
All I do is go enter.
Okay, it'll be short talk. Okay, and then So we're all waiting for that to go. So in here, this very bright spot where there's some new stars being formed, there's 4 stars that make up the trapezium, and there they are. So Chris did a shot, and Jim Johnson actually helped with the processing.
I'll say that Jim Johnson did all the processing, actually.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim. I am trying to move away from deep sky stacker to stack photos of sub exposures, and this is at a very long focal length, and so the stars are blobbier than deep sky star, whatever the stacking software. It's just naive stacking software. It didn't see any stars in this image, or at least not enough, and it refused to do anything with it. And there are other pieces of software that have no problem with it, and Jim uses, I think, Astro Pixel Processor, APP, and he offered to have a go at it, and this is what he got out of the data I gave him. So nice job, Jim.
Yeah, so Jim and Chris, that's quite an amazing image of the trapezium. That's really really quite beautiful. Okay, so the next was the Pleiades. So there's Orion, and you go up to Aldebaran. So this is Taurus, and then you keep going, and there's the Pleiades. So you can actually see that as sort of a smudge in a nice dark sky. What's that? Right. Depending on how good your eyes are. And so I had a couple tries at that, and so about a week ago, so this is using an 80mm refractor. I used a modified T3i, so with the infrared filter removed that I got from Jim Johnson, and it also has a I didn't put it in here, a light pollution filter. So it's probably not quite the right setup for getting something that's more blue than red. And so a couple nights ago, I tried it again with an unmodified SL2 and no filters, and got about the same sort of thing. I'm not sure if I've got a problem with amp glow up here or what, but I'm still struggling with the Pleiades. I still have trouble with. I'm just using Deep Sky Stacker and then using GIMP, and I have trouble with the stars blowing out a little bit. So, and we also have from John Nugent, he did some images of the Heart Nebula, and so this is Cassiopeia, and there's the double cluster. So the Heart Nebula is right in that area, and the Soul Nebula is nearby, so about 7,500 light years away. And so I'll just, with no further ado, there's John's picture of that. And so John, we've been sort of watching over a few years as John has really developed his imaging capabilities. So this is a very lovely shot. And you can see some of the stuff that he's used here, using a 72mm refractor. And last night I tried the double cluster because it's one of my favorite things. And unfortunately, I focused with the Batinov mask when looking at Sirius, when the telescope was horizontal, and by the time it rotated up to the double cluster, something seems to have moved. So it's not perfectly focused, but I still find this one of the, looking at this through binoculars, big binoculars or something, or, you know, if it's nice and dark, that's always one of the, my favorite things to look at. So there it is. And there, this one, at least I got enough that I could see some color in some of the stars. So oh no, we still have some, so in this, so we've just been looking over in this neighborhood So if we go over in this direction, so here's a bit of Andromeda coming down, and I always go from this side of Cassiopeia and down and look for these stars, and there's where the Andromeda Galaxy is. And we're not going to look at the Andromeda Galaxy. What we've got is a couple shots of the Triangulum Galaxy, which is in the same neighborhood. So there's Triangulum. Triangulum Galaxy's up from the edge. So to orient you, Cassiopeia, Andromeda Galaxy, and then down to the Triangulum Galaxy. So I did a shot of this just after Christmas using the modified camera, and then Jim Johnson did a shot with his Raza camera and got lots of detail there. And I think that's the end of the observation reports. So thank you everybody for your contributions. And I'm not sure, did Robert wasn't feeling well. I'm not sure if he made it on or not.
Yeah, I'm actually here.
Hey, Robert, did you want me to bring up the sky this month, or?
Yeah, sure. If you have time, I know we had a lot going on in this meeting, so.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
sure.
if you just want to run through it quickly, I can click through and let's see what happens.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's, nothing of any new nature
Okay,
talked about, like any new comets or new supernovas, that at least not that I know for. I've been known to miss one or two of them over the past 20 years. But anyway, our day-night cycle is there for all to see, of course, and you can move right on from that. And this active sun that we have right now, there are some nice spots happening, as you can see. So if you get a chance and your solar filtered correctly, go have a look. Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus are still available for observation, and that's what the green indicates there. Not to say that some of the others aren't, but within a normal viewing time. So carrying on.
if you get up early, you can see Venus.
Yeah, but that's what I say, normal for me.
Right. We've had that discussion before.
Yeah. The moon, 6 days old, is in a great phase for binocular and telescope viewing. So by all means, get out when we get some clear sky and take up that. And here's the planet roundup. And as we've already spoken of, there are 3 that are fairly easily gotten, and Venus as well. Comet roundup, there are 3 or 4 that are visible to us, although as you can see, it goes from 7.6 magnitude all the way down to 12th magnitude. So you'd want some fairly good aperture for some of this, although 7.6 is fairly good and is well placed in Cygnus, but I don't think that there's any big tail to be had with these. They're not, oh my gosh, type of comets, but nonetheless, they're there and achievable. Asteroids, 3 of note that are reasonably placed in our sky with a reasonable chance of being able to see them as points of light. And you'd have to go out like night after night if you were ever so lucky as to get consecutive nights, or even nights with every second night, so that you could detect some motion to identify them. No supernova of note that I have found this time around this month. And here's our principal meteor showers. The next one Oh boy, it looks like I might have missed out on changing up my red columns or red rows on this because January 3rd, 4th is passed. So the next one is in April, the Lyrids. And continuing on, so we have some ISS passes, as noted there from the 18th to the 21st. There's more than that, but I've just included, you know, the most recent ones there. And of course, you can go to the website to see more. And we have our normal telescope and binocular objects that are well placed for this time of year, and that's why they're included there. And the new challenge object in Iridanus. Can't remember, is that a snake type of constellation?
Eridanus is a river.
Okay, river. Yeah, okay. So maybe there's snakes in the river too. Not sure where I got snake too, but how about the shape of a river being not unlike the shape of a snake? Something
And
struck.
Kemble 1, is that Kemble Cascade?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that, if people haven't, I mean,
That's nice.
that's a nice one. If you haven't seen that with binoculars, that's worth trying to find.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So like I say, those are well-placed objects. You know, you don't necessarily need you know, a great amount of telescopic or binocular power to be able to view these objects. Notes about observing sessions. It's kind of like our legal aspects to it and rules around it. However, this time of year now, with so much cloud, the calendar that's coming up next is pretty much vacant, as you can see, except for the phases of the moon. You know, we strive to have some observing sessions around about new moon. So when you look at this calendar, you can see the new moon was on the 11th. So the 12th, 13th, that, you know, that weekend would be an ideal slot to have observing sessions. Of course, that date is past now anyway. But the following month, similarly, is blank at the moment. However, I'm always watching, and if I see that on the 10th of February, it looks, you know, like there's a possibility to be able to go out, then I would, you know, populate that and send a notice out on the talk list to see if we could do something. And that pretty much wraps that little newsletter or whatever you want to call it up for this month, and it's available on our website, of course, as always.
Okay, thanks very much, Robert. So that pretty much wraps it up. I'm just going to remind you of the announcements. We're going to have a members only planetarium show in 8 days on Thursday. Marine Institute, Forward to the Moon. As Canada sends its first astronaut to the moon, we look at how the new space race to the moon is going. And as always, thank you to Gary for arranging that for us. And our next meeting in a month is going to be Nikolai telling us about how sunny it's going to be until the sun gets covered up. I hope so. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It was a good turnout in person and online. And congratulations again to all the winners in the astrophotography contest. We're now going to sit back and sort of analyze how that went, and probably the timing next time will be a little bit different. And we'll make the announcement when that comes, but we may be looking at one of the things that's a possibility is having the pictures submitted around this time of year and then having the contest wrap up in June. So we wouldn't do it for this year, but we would do it in 2025. But we'll see. We'll maybe get comments from people and figure out how we can do that. And so thank you, everybody, and thanks for coming. Yeah, good to see your name there, Phil. I don't know if I can see, I only see a.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yep. Oh, there he is. Here, just say all.
I was
now-
just staying off camera for most of the proceedings there. So yeah, no, that was a lot of fun.
Yep. So good to see you. So I'm going to say goodbye to the folks that are online and sort of wind things up. The people who are here. So I don't know where I am. The people who are in the room, we have some coffee and some treats. So people who aren't in the room, if you get in the room next time, you can get some coffee and treats too. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. See you later.
How are you doing too?
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.